Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, it was a doozy of an NBA day. The Boston Celtics kind of dump trucked the Dallas Mavericks in game one for a majority of the game. So we're going to talk about that. And then Danny Hurley's name has come up very seriously with the Los Angeles Lakers opening. We're going to talk about that as well, in addition to a couple of NBA draft news and notes. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy? Long time no see.
I know, man. It hasn't been just a couple days since our last time recording, but we got some NBA finals or did we record last night? When's the last time we recorded? I don't know.
You know what the funny thing is you thought it was a couple days ago. It was yesterday. I think
really?
it's been under 24 hours since we last talked on this show.
Okay. Good to know. So
this is where Bryce's life is right now.
Don't let Amari know this, because I always give Amari crap because he never knows what the day of the week is. And so it's like, Tuesday, Wednesday, he has no clue. But yeah, my excuse is I'm getting old. I have 3 kids. We got baseball games, swim lessons, all of these things. And so, yeah, I guess that was last night, less than 24 hours ago. My bad. Goodness gracious.
Goodness. That last episode, we've gotten great reviews. It's fantastic.
Great. That's not the term I would have used. We've got a lot of reviews. I don't know if all of them are great.
Fantastic.
You got cooked for the Rockets one. I didn't even know people were pissed about that one.
Oh, did they? I did. I told you when I proposed that people were going to get mad at that.
No, they said it was too much.
No, I knew that Rockets fans were going to say it was too much. I told you on both sides that was going to frustrate people.
Yeah, it was like Tari Eason essentially was untouchable based off some of the comments.
Tari's great. I love Tari Eason. Tari Eason's the 6th best prospect on that team. We need to understand where this sits. And again, I think we called Tari a long-term starter there. Really like Tari.
I thought we gave Tari plenty of flowers in that. And
did I miss something? When I do episodes like that, I just completely stay off Twitter and I stay off of
I think they may have tagged you. It showed up randomly on my timeline. It wasn't like people tagged us and called us out or whatever. And
so here was my goal with that deal, so that people stop melting down. My goal with that deal was to find a middle ground.
Yeah.
On a Mikal Bridges deal. A middle ground. That was the goal. I figured that the middle ground was going to be too much for Rockets fans and too little for Brooklyn fans. So I'm not surprised.
So here's the other thing. I follow a lot of Rockets people because they're very engaging on Twitter, and I enjoy and appreciate that very much. I don't know that I follow any Nets fans. And so I didn't see kind of the responses there. I just know the one tweet I clicked on, there was 10 comments and they were all L.
No
This
surprise.
is bad. I was
no surprise.
This is unanimous. I was just, it
was
was
Rockets fans don't want to move Tari. I totally get it. Tari seems like a great dude and a awesome dude to have around. So I totally get where they're coming from. It's just, if they want Mikal Bridges, they have to understand that they have to give real value.
That may have been the other thing. Maybe it wasn't some of it was Tari, but some of it was is Mikal. And we talked about this as well, though. I talked to somebody else. I think you even said you wouldn't do this for Mikal Bridges. If you were going to move this stuff, you would go truly star hunting big fish type of thing. And so, no, it was, listen, my thing was I got a little defensive. Mostly you did the legwork, came up with 30 trades. Of course, a couple of them are going to be missing a extra first here, an extra second there. It was insane.
I'm in no way defensive about that. That episode was a deranged shit show that we knew it was going to be going in.
Yeah.
So I have like, that was meant to be fun. I have no, if people want to come at me for that episode, like I'm fine with it. Like that episode was meant to be like an enjoyable, we are throwing shit off the wall, having fun episode. I'm not real concerned about it.
Somebody threw something. I was like, my head was spinning by the end of the episode. I couldn't remember who we had traded for what, how many first round picks, like trying to keep value the same. I was all over the place. I know we got a game one to talk about.
We got to get to game one. Okay. So the Boston Celtics defeated the Dallas Mavericks in game one of the NBA Finals, 107-89. Man, I would say midway through the second quarter, I thought Boston was going to hang 130 on Dallas, probably. I would say 130 is right around where my number was. They were unbelievable. And part of this was like a hot shooting stretch. Part of this was like they just caught absolute like fire flames from three. I mean, Sam Hauser drilled a couple, and Kristaps was everywhere from the mid range, and like Tatum drilled 3 threes. Like they had 7 guys in this game hit multiple 3-pointers. On the other side, the Dallas Mavericks went 7 of 27 from 3. You can look at this as a shooting variance game. I look at this a lot more as a game where it was like an opening salvo of what the series could be. Yep. And I thought it was an interesting return salvo from Dallas in the third quarter, particularly adjusting around it and trying to find answers defensively to what Boston was presenting in terms of creating all of these different mismatches on offense. And then in the second quarter, additionally for Dallas, I thought Dallas panicked. Like they started throwing these like weird, like lazy double teams at guys. And like, if there's one team in the NBA that you can't throw like non-specific,
at least be
doubles.
At least be aggressive and attack it.
Like if you can't find those, you're going to get killed because Boston moves the ball around the perimeter so fast with guys like Al Horford. Kristaps moves the ball pretty quick now within the flow of that offense, at least. And then you obviously have Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, in the flow of that offense has looked really, really good in terms of just moving it around and creating those things. This was a fantastic performance from the Boston offense for 24 minutes that ultimately won them the game, I think. The second half we'll talk about as well, but the key takeaway to me here has to be unequivocally what Boston did in that first half was undeniable in some way because of how difficult they made it for the Dallas Mavericks on defense and forced them into panic situations.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of us going into this series, no matter who you picked, would say that like Boston has the best 5-man group. Like these guys are connected. They play well together on both ends of the floor. We saw some crazy rim protection throughout this game. Porzingis in the first half, I think we're probably going to see some of those. And then we even saw some from Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And the Mavs were going to have to get just superstar heroics from their 2 dudes. I thought Luka was pretty good in this game. I thought Kyrie was really, really bad. And I told you before we started recording, Kyrie had 3 wide open threes in the third, where if he makes 2 of those 3, I don't know if they win the game, but I don't think it ends up a blowout where the subs are finishing it off. I think we get a game going into the fourth. Dallas had really made a run. Those are the shots you have to make to fully get over the top, get it under 5 points, something like that, and really give yourselves a chance. And he just wasn't very good in this game. I was really intrigued by some of the strategy stuff where the Celtics started Tatum on Gafford, and that forced the Mavs to completely go away from that pick and roll action.
This was entirely the biggest thing that I noticed in terms of the schematics of this game, because Boston decided to put Porzingis, Horford with their big, whoever their big was on the court, on one of PJ or Derek Jones Jr., it completely mitigated everything that Dallas wanted to do to create gravity rolling to the rim with Luka because they just have KP or Horford kind of sag off in a significant way.
Well, and if you do come bring Gafford or Lively to set the ball screen, the Celtics are just going to switch it. Like they're just going to switch Jason Tatum onto Luka. Jaylen Brown can switch off onto one of those bigs, and then neither Lively or Gafford is really going to be able to you're not going to roll. Here's the difference between the bigs in this series. And again, I don't want to bury the lead here. Whenever the Mavs switch a smaller guy onto Porzingis, what do the Celtics do? They hit him in the mid post, and he got buckets in this game. When the Celtics switch a smaller guy on Gafford or Lively, it changes nothing. Like the Mavs still have to, Luka, Kyrie still have to go ISO. I think where Lively and Gafford have to make the Celtics pay is on the offensive boards. Those two guys have to find a way to just destroy the Celtics on the offensive boards for playing a smaller person on them.
I think that's dead on. Additionally, you mentioned Porzingis. I think that it is critical to bring up what he brings to their offense in terms of the way that they are multiple when Porzingis is out there offensively. They are so versatile in the way that they can beat you. If you play more of a drop scheme with Daniel Gafford, they can pick and pop with Porzingis, and then you force peel switches and everything like that. If you switch Porzingis, we're going to break down some tape here. You will see he hammered those switches tonight. We'll see if he can do it throughout the course of the series, but my goodness, he was awesome hammering those switches. If you play more at the level, they get the ball into rotation so quick and they space the court so well that it creates so many interesting driving angles for guys like Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown led the team in scoring today with 22 points. He had a few just unbelievable drives, stringing crossovers together, getting to a spin move. He was awesome, I thought, in this game. He was really, really good. I thought the most important player, though, was Porzingis.
Yeah, I think we saw why acquiring him was so important for them. It wasn't just the rim protection. That's important. It wasn't just a floor spacing big. That's absolutely important. It was his ability to attack these switches. And like you said, it makes them multiple. We know they love to shoot threes. They'll drive and kick and spray it out there and knock them down. And they have multiple guys that can do it. But being able to switch that up every once in a while and throw it to him on the elbow against Jaden Hardy or even Derrick Jones Jr. or whoever it was tonight and just let him score, that's huge to take the pressure off Jaylen Brown or Tatum or whoever to get into the paint. I thought he was incredible. He had a burst of energy, and I would assume he just gets stronger throughout the series as this is the first time he's played in how many ever days. And so his minutes, I think, will probably go up. I don't know, assume they move him back into the starting lineup. I don't know. Maybe they won't. Maybe they like how this looked, but his impact should be felt. Now, he did slow down a little bit in the second half, right? It wasn't, keeping up with the pace he had in the first was going to be crazy, but you can just see why we talk about that archetype of big all the time.
It's really, really critical. Having guys that can shoot, it's really the game changer in today's NBA. It's why I'm a little bit higher on somebody like Kyle Filipowski in the draft. Having somebody that you think can shoot, he's not going to have Kristaps's gravity necessarily as a shooter, and he's not going to be Kristaps as a rim protector. He's just nowhere near as good as Kristaps. But Kristaps is also a top 30, top 40 player in the league, let's say. And even having a big who can step away and shoot is just so important. Let's just dive in. Let's talk about Kristaps' game, because I pulled a bunch of clips of this and I thought he was a monster. You will see throughout the course of the first half, especially, I felt like they really tried to attack him early on when he was on the court. They tried to get him in ball screens, tried to kind of get him kind of all over the court and make him move around to test his mobility. He was fantastic around the rim, I thought, particularly. This is just a really good drop coverage possession, right? And he just gets back, he recovers, blocks. I think he might have got a hand on that shot. If not, he definitely contests. But just look at his hand movement here. Look at the footwork. Look at how he's making it so that he's taking up a ton of space in the lane to account for the roller. You've got the backside defenders there with Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday, kind of making sure that they are able to stay attached and play solid help defense. I'm trying to get my pen up and it's not working. And this is just great. This is really, really good work. and then he gets the rebound, right? And then they're going to come down, I think, literally the next possession.
Yep.
And he's going to come up, I think, take a screen here. And they decide to switch it with Luka. And he just gets fouled, right? Like, that's a really hard area for Luka to be on an island against Porzingis. Honestly, I think that is probably one of the more advantageous switches that Dallas can make, because I don't think Kristaps, although we saw him do it against Lively today, he's not going to try and turn the corner quite as much as what you're going to see from some other guys who can dribble, pass, shoot, right? And Luka can certainly body him and contest, but I really, really like Porzingis here, just using that, elbow to create a little bit of separation, getting there, getting to that shot. I think just really, really easy action there off of the switch to create this. And by the way, like, I don't want this to be lost on us or on Celtics fans or on Dallas fans. On some level, this is kind of what Dallas wanted Kristaps to be early in Kristaps' tenure in Dallas. Like,
Yeah.
I feel a little bit bad about that, right? So like this one, I just think Jaden Hardy, if he's going to play, he needs to be a lot more aggressive, kind of getting over the top here. And I think he and Derek Lively here need to be able to communicate through this better. They have to be able to communicate through this better so that Jaden doesn't have to peel switch out.
I say you want Jaden to stay home in this situation. Just go ahead and kind of stay in. It looks like they're icing it, so stay true ice. Hardy, the screen was barely set. Let him get back. The guys on the other side of the court, Brown and Tatum, are barely across half court, so somebody could stun at Porzingis if they hit the pick and pop, allowing Lively to recover. And with Lively's mobility and movement, you would hope that he's able to do that. Like, that's one advantage of him having the athleticism that he does. I agree with you that it's just too soft of a switch.
But the thing I do want to point out here is just look at how wide open this area of the court is. There is one dude there, and it's Luka. This is what having Kristaps here, obviously trailers, but two trailers that these defenders have to be keenly aware of.
Absolutely.
In Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and then Sam Hauser. This is the power of spacing.
Yep.
This is the power that you see with what people talk about and what they care about with floor spacing. Again, you see Kristaps just like kind of duck into the elbow here.
Uses
pump
the elbow
fakes,
on
Jaden Hardy just like way out. Yeah. I mean, there's just no, like, Jaden Hardy has no chance in that situation. You have to be able to get through that action. This almost sets up where it looks like it's going to be like a Ram screen, where a Ram screen would be for people who like aren't super aware necessarily. It'd be like an inverted Ram. Typically, like, you'd have the 3 come down for the 5, and the 5 would come up and set this, set this ball screen here for this ball handler, right? Inverted, I mean that the Ram screen here is that KP is setting the screen initially as the 5 for the 3-man or the 4-man, whatever you want to call him, Tatum here, to come up and set the screen at the top for White. But what this kind of balloons into is almost like a Ram ghost, I would argue, where like Tatum, instead of coming up and setting the screen, he just like kind of comes over here. And then Porzingis is going to come out here and be ready to take like a potential catch. Again, the other thing that is worth pointing out here, when you have a big that can dribble, pass, shoot, and you have spacing around him, 3-point line, both these guys at the 3-point line, 3-point line, look where their defenders are.
Yep.
There is so much space to attack here. There is so much space to attack here. And Porzingis understands it, decides to attack the rookie and Lively, gets all the way to the rim, turns the corner. That's when like the wheels, it felt like, really came off for Dallas here. At that point, I think it was 24-18. Here you've got Porzingis in drop, fantastic block shot, right? Fantastic contest. And this is where we really start to get cooking. Green has to basically pick up Porzingis in transition here.
He just knows his spot where he knows where he wants to get to. He was over 50% from 10 to 16 feet. If I'm Dallas, I'm thinking going into the rest of the series, if I can hold him off 2 feet, if I can push him out to 18 feet, 19 feet, where he's 40%, 10% less from 16 feet to 3-point line, maybe I, make these shots just a little bit tougher and he doesn't shoot as good percentage. But he got to the elbow tonight. He got to his spot. He looked comfortable. He knocked these down.
Dead on. This one, Kyrie hits the side of the backboard. You're going to see Porzingis come down, trailer 3, drills it.
And like, I almost feel bad for Daniel Gafford because as a big, your whole life, you're told to what? Go protect the rim. He's sprinting to the paint, but there's nobody there because everybody spaces the floor.
Yeah. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous here. This is a 7'3" big man. A 7'3" big catching at the logo, essentially.
That's stupid.
Firing from 30 feet and drilling a 3. I mean, good luck. Like that's again, just the power of what spacing does. If you decide to kind of sell out on the lane, right? Like this is what it does. It makes you make choices that are disadvantageous to you every single time.
Yep.
This is why this Boston team had a 120 offensive rating this year. This is why Porzingis is a complete game changer for them, and why without him, it was way harder for them on offense.
Yeah.
This one, I mean, this is a 7'3" guy coming back from injury, and he's just dealing with Kyrie, like getting to his spots, blocking shots, starting the break the other way, right? Like, then we're coming down here.
Hauser one.
This one your favorite Sam Hauser 3, or was the like absolute no dip, like catch high, keep high, like 3-pointer that he drilled in the left corner your favorite?
I like the no dip, but there's just something about a transition, movement, relocation, like that I just am a fan of. So that one I like a little bit more.
Absolutely disgusting. This one, again, KP just kind of gives Tatum his space here, right? Look who you've got out there. You've got Pritchard, a guy that they probably feel pretty comfortable helping off of, I would bet, but can still hurt you. He can really shoot it. Drew Holiday, another guy that I would guess they feel like a little bit comfortable helping off of, right? Not crazy comfortable, but look at the spacing difference here, right? You have 2 guys in the paint ready. Gafford's over there to help. Ends up being a turnover.
Yep.
And then Porzingis just like erases it. In transition, first game back from injury, completely erases a transition dunk from Josh Green. This one, again, they decide to peel switch it. This is one you just can't peel switch. I'm sorry. Like, you have to stay attached for that extra second. If you're Derek Lively, force the ball out of Jason Tatum's hands, or, force some rotation. I know that we don't like doubles. I understand why they peel switch. And at the end of the day, you and I talked a lot about how Dallas's defense was fantastic peel switching this year. Yeah. Like, we talked about that, I think maybe in the first round, as a huge factor in terms of why they've been so successful defensively in the second half. Just peel switching. And by peel switching, I mean, I would guess this is not a switch that they want to make all the time through this screening action. I think that they would probably prefer, given that Derek White is going over the top here, I think they would probably prefer Lively or Derek Jones to stay attached here, Lively to get back onto KP. But instead, they end up peel switching it.
Right.
Porzingis gets the ball out of his hands and then just decides, I'm going to go get to my spot, get to where I want to go against Derek Jones. Again, right at that 16-foot mark, like you said, Bryce. Drills that 3 from the left elbow again. I think that in the first half, Dallas made it just a little bit too easy,
Yep.
while also understanding that peel switching has been a big part of why they've been successful late in the year.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to be successful based off what we saw in game one. And I don't want to overreact just because they lost by 20 or whatever it was. But two of these we've shown, they easily, and I use that a little bit loose. I know nothing is easy, but they could have got back in front. The Jaden Hardy clip, he could have got back in front. That one, Derrick Jones Jr. got over the top. Just another little effort. Somebody, just stunning at Porzingis, making him think about it from the weak side. You don't got to get in rotation to do that. And I just thought Boston got to the rim anytime they wanted. I didn't think Lively held up well in switches against Tatum and Brown and some of these guys. I think they have to reconsider how soft they switch, how much they peel switch, try to navigate some of these things, even if it's the first, action in the possession. Maybe if it happens with 7 seconds, there's not as long drawn out isolations, but early in possessions, I want to see them navigate these screens better.
So in here would be the counter to what we're saying here.
Sure.
Right. The counter would be Kristaps drilled like 7 super tough mid-range shots. That's the shot we want them to take.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That would be
fair.
the counter. And if that's the shot they want them to take, they executed the strategy well. The problem is that they really only won the minutes, it felt like to me, when Kristaps was off the court. Right. It felt like it was a significant difference to me through the first 3 quarters, especially. Throw out the fourth quarter, it was basically done. I felt like every time Porzingis came on the court, a run happened for Boston. The fourth quarter is a different ball game on some level, but it was a serious factor throughout the game to me.
Yeah, and again, I would definitely hear that out from anybody who says, "Hey, look, go back and just look at his makes, and even the one where he got fouled, force him to do that for 4 wins in this series." And you would rather him do that than potentially catching wide open pick and pop threes, right? Because that's the counter. If you're going to navigate over the top, get back in front, not switch, Lively has to stay a count longer. Somebody either may have to stunt. If they don't, you do open yourselves up to a Kristaps Porzingis pick and pop 3. So I don't hate the Mavs idea of that. I think what I'm more worried about is whenever they do these switches, not only do you have the Kristaps advantage, you also have advantage for Tatum and Brown to attack because of the switch also. So Boston really has multiple options, as you mentioned and alluded to right at the top.
Yeah. So this one, I think that was an offensive rebound or an inbounds pass or whatever. Again, peel switch in the second quarter. Porzingis just getting to that same exact spot. This one's 18 feet. Drills it with ease over Josh Green. That's a matchup that I think can't happen because he just shoots over the top too easily.
And they're trying, you see how physical they're trying to be to keep him those extra couple feet out that we talked about. Porzingis he was good getting to his spots.
That's right. And then this one here, again, just drilling threes, just absolutely drilling threes, right? This is the stuff that makes it just really, really hard.
That is silly. I guess I didn't realize how deep those 2 makes were.
Yeah, 30 footers, nothing.
Gracious.
Just drills 30 footers, regularly. This guy is a serious problem, I think, for Dallas in this series. And he completely changes the way the Boston has to play. Now, in terms of the adjustments for Dallas, I thought that Boston frankly got a little bit less intentional in the second half at trying to take advantage of switches, which was strange. Could have just been simply that the Boston Celtics were up 28, after this 3, and we're up 20 going into the second half, and they got a little bit less intentional, and Dallas came back. They got it within 8, if I remember correctly, 64-72. And then Boston, I think, went on a 12-0 run that really kind of ended the game and asserted their own dominance. Andrew Lennon asks, can we talk about the decision not to start KP after days of saying opposite publicly? Was that gamesmanship or an honest reaction to a rough warm-up? I I don't really know. I don't really think too much of it. I think that they probably had a plan going in, and it was probably to bring Kristaps off the bench in order to limit his minutes if possible. I know that Missoula said that he didn't have a minutes limit coming into this game, or like a minutes restriction, but if you can limit the minutes for him, I think it would probably be a little bit more beneficial, as he's like first game back. Like Bryce said in the second half, I thought he looked a little bit, wiped, I think is a reasonable way to put it. Like, it's just different getting back into game shape, especially when you're 7'3" and you're playing your first game in a month where you're really going up and down. And this game, it felt like, was played pretty fast in the first half. So I didn't think much of this at all.
Yeah, I don't, I try not to overthink those things where we don't really know for sure. And we know that we don't always get the real story publicly in the media, whether it's gamesmanship or protecting players or whatever. So, maybe there was something they saw that was like, hey, I don't know. I would assume that if they were nervous about his being ready to play, that he wouldn't have played. So my guess is they just felt and decided we want to limit him to 20 to 24 minutes. And the best way to do that is off the bench. And I know people have their own thoughts on that. You can still start and only play 24 minutes. I get it. Everybody has their, preferences and how they like to do things.
The big issue for Dallas in the series, to me, is the center position in general. In this game, Daniel Gafford plays 14 minutes, has 8 points, but only 3 rebounds, and was a -10. Derek Lively in this game was dreadful.
Yeah.
He really struggled dealing with Porzingis on the perimeter. I think that he just kind of got thrown a little bit in terms of everything that was happening in space. He's typically a pretty good guy recognition wise in terms of what's going on around him, but it just felt like he was a rookie playing in space against the best offense in the league, arguably the best offense in league history.
In game one of the NBA finals on the road, Sam.
Yeah.
I mean,
2 points, 5 fouls in 18 minutes, only 5 rebounds. They need to find answers at the center position. They went to Maxi Kleber at times. They, obviously went to Dwight Powell later in the game, right? But Maxi played a fair amount of minutes as a 5-man in this game. And I'm intrigued to see if they try to go to that maybe a little bit more in order to potentially space out Boston just a little bit better.
Here's my thing. They got to find a pick and roll partner, though. They got to figure out what they're going to do with this. They cannot just, I think the Celtics perimeter defenders are too good to just say, Luka, go in isolation. And they have too many different guys they can throw at him as well. So he's not just going to get dudes in foul trouble because it's the NBA finals and they're not going to call enough fouls. But even if Jaylen Brown gets in foul trouble, then you throw Drew Holiday on him. And, I think they got to find their balls. One thing I've loved through this whole thing, we talked about it all the way. Oklahoma series. What did we talk about? That Oklahoma City was playing off the weak side, giving up weak side corner threes because of the pick and roll of Luka and the lob gravity of the bigs. I think I would like to see them use PJ Washington, continue to put the Celtics bigs in the ball screen. And if they put 2 on the ball, which they try not to, but if you do let I think PJ Washington has a nice little floater. It's not going to be the highlight lob dunks. Maybe he can hit those. Maybe Maxi can pick some pop, but I thought they went completely away from the ball screen when they realized they weren't going to be able to run it with Lively and Gafford. I also would like to see him push the pace a little bit, Sam, because if they run, I don't care if they score in transition. I think they can create the matchups they want in transition because Lively and Gafford are guarding the bigs on the other end. So if Dallas pushes a little bit, maybe they can get the same matchup on going the other way where the Tatum isn't able to get on them.
I think that that's all fair. I think I would like to see them go. You're kind of suggesting this, more 5 out. Essentially. Sure.
But I still want them to set ball screens though.
100%.
Okay.
You set ball screens. The problem is that Luka really likes a lob partner there,
Yes.
right? And if you don't do that, like you're almost like betting on like Kleba and PJ at the 5 on some level, which is an interesting potential option, but like Kleba was like not very good in this game. I didn't think. Kleba, 19 points or 19 minutes, I'm sorry, and minus 15 in those 19. He was on during that like, avalanche stretch, as Mike Breen called it, during the first half, where like they just drilled 3 after 3 after 3, and like it almost like really wasn't anything to do with him. But the key for Dallas to me is figuring out if they have an answer at the 5. If they don't have an answer at the 5, I think this series is over quite quickly. The other question for them, in my opinion, is there any way that they can help off of, like, do you put a big on Drew Holiday consistently and try to help off of Drew and make Drew beat you? I thought Drew was amazing today. On both ends of the court. I thought he did an unbelievable job when he was matched up with Kyrie. I thought he did a decent job, bodying up against Luka when asked to do that occasionally. I thought Drew Holiday was like the unsung, like awesome guy for Boston. Everyone's going to talk about Porzingis. People will talk about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum for obvious reasons. I think that they were both great today. I thought Drew Holiday was unbelievable in this game.
Yeah, Drew Holiday is awesome. I've loved watching him all year. And I think the broadcast talked about just a player going throughout his career, and then you go to a new team and your role changes drastically from like an on-ball guy to now they put him in the dunker spot, or you're standing in the corner ready for, kick out threes. Based off this one game at home, and Boston was obviously ready with the intensity level and all that, I don't want Dallas to like go crazy, but there may be a thing where like we just have to live with it instead of all of these guys driving and kicking and one-mooring and swing, and we just force it into one person. Maybe Drew misses the first couple attempts and you get in his head a little bit or something like that. He may be too much of a veteran for that to happen, but I don't think they can stay in front. In this game, they could not stay in front. Boston got wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted. We saw some of the finishes. You talked about that. And when they didn't finish, they were kicking it and then shot or one more and shot. And Dallas has to have an answer. I don't like zones hard to answer. We've broke down a lot of Dallas zone defense, but not against these floor spacers. So it's what's the other answer then? Like, what do you do? When you talk about, you can't put 2 on the ball. That just puts you in scramble also.
Yeah, but like it's funny. So, we talked a lot about the peel switching like not being ideal because of the way Porzingis played, but like it might be the move. Honestly, it's either that or you sag off of Drew and like you make Drew Holiday prove that he can like win in the playoffs, which is something by and large like Drew Holiday has not always done an amazing job of knocking down shots in the playoffs. This year, he's made 40% of his threes in the playoffs in their 14 games now. Going in, it was 14. And then he made 40% tonight. So in 15 games, he's drilled 40% from 3 in the playoffs. So like, I don't feel great about it. I'm just saying, like, if I'm playing the odds in one way or another, kind of betting on Drew Holiday's playoff past, like, might be an option as an adjustment. They don't have great options here. There's not a good option against a Boston offense with Kristaps that averages like 120 points per 100 possessions.
Yeah, and maybe that's just what you have to do. Like, as much as we talked about it, maybe you just say, hey, by getting this switch onto Kristaps, or even if it's Al Horford, whatever, and if we can get Boston to run their offense through Kristaps in the mid-range or something through, we'll live with that, as opposed to them breaking us down off the dribble and then getting that flow offensively and shooting and making most likely a bunch of threes. Analytically, it makes sense, right? Like, make Kristaps make all of those at the clip that he did tonight. So I think on the other end too, Dallas has to figure out we've given Jason Kidd a lot of love for creativity of like the sets. I didn't feel like we saw that tonight. You talked about the rim gravity. can they find a way to use the rim gravity, the lob threat of Lively and Gafford out of the dunker spot? So, it's easy to put them in the ball screen and roll to the rim and Spain or double drag or whatever. Can you do some creative things where it puts pressure on Jason Tatum in a spot he's comfortable in, but put some pressure on him where you're getting somebody downhill. All right,
make him defend.
Yes. Are you going to step over and stop Luka? Or are you going to stay hugged up to the dunker spot guy? Which are you going to do? Dallas has to find a way to do that. Like, can they take an advantage in that way?
Okay. Let's move forward off of Boston now.
Okay.
I want to talk about the Danny Hurley Lakers stuff.
Okay.
So Adrian Wojnarowski today dropped a substantial bombshell, I think is the way to put it. Like a bombshell of basketball that like I did not think would be coming, certainly, let's say. Dan Hurley and the Los Angeles Lakers have been in contact regarding their job. They have an open head coaching position. JJ Redick has been discussed in this regard. Woj has it that apparently they are very strongly considering making an absolute monster, absolute drop the bag offer. It's going to have to be, I would imagine, to Danny Hurley. I will give you the floor first. When you saw this, what was your immediate reaction?
I was shocked. I woke up to this morning and was like, what is going on? Like, we just, we had heard the JJ Redick stuff. We talk about Connecticut a lot on here. We've been talking about Alex Caravan, Liam McNeely's a high school kid that I follow, that team together and stuff like that. And Hurley, who's won back-to-back, and is he going to be able to put a roster together to go compete for a third one? And then I'll just say, like, you have way more insight in general, just because you kind of have the pulse of these guys as coaches even more than I do across the country, not just with Hurley.
Yeah.
But to me, my thought immediately went to, okay, tactician, I love it. And I want to read what I had sent somebody, what I thought the Lakers should be looking for. I'll do that in a second after you go also. But I was like, is he going to work with NBA players? Because he just seems like psychotically intense and detailed in like the greatest way possible, but not the most NBA way possible. Am I overdoing it?
No, I'm glad you brought it up. So where to even begin with this? Danny Hurley is all of that. He is a very intense human being. That is not an unfair characterization. We see him animated on the sidelines. We see him losing his mind at officials. He is also very much like he is a guy that has the pulse of his locker room and brings in players to his team that like knows that like they can like handle it. Like to me, like Austin Reeves would be incredible under Danny Hurley and within this offense. Like he is the exact kind of player that Danny Hurley like would love to have, because he is super smart. He can play with and without the ball and is versatile in a lot of different respects in order to, run different pieces of their schemes. So what is Danny Hurley as a schematic coach, right? In general, he runs like a very NBA style offense that generates threes and rim attempts at a super high level. They space the court super well. Ton of dribble handoffs, ton of horn stuff, some floppy stuff. Like they really do a good job of having a lot of different, sets, formations, whatever you want to call it, and then running different actions off of that, and then having a number of counters off of those actions that make it really, really hard for defenses to consistently be prepared for it.
Don't you think they run stuff really good for their personnel also that like highlights their personnel's strengths?
Absolutely correct. They do a great job of maximizing what they have. A big piece of it to me is that in their successful years, for instance, they've always had multiple ball handlers, guys who can like initiate the offense, guys who can play with the ball in their hands and, get set up. So like this year it was Tristan Newton, Cam Spencer, Steph Castle. Last year it was Tristan Newton, Andre Jackson, and who am I forgetting?
Yeah.
Why am I forgetting somebody?
I'm blanking somebody also.
Yeah, like they just had a number of different players that would be able to come in and, start up the actions. Naheem Aline last year would be able to do it at times. Certainly Hassan Diarra is a point guard that can come in and do it at times. Big emphasis on having like multiple ball handlers and incredible spacing, right? That is absolutely the biggest, most important factor of a Danny Hurley led offense, and credit to where credit's due. Luke Murray deserves quite a bit of credit here. He does a really good job, designing a good portion of their offense, right? As an assistant coach too. Defensively, Hurley is very willing to play different schemes depending on the personnel that is out there. If it's Donovan Clingan, they'll play in like full scale drop, and Clingan was incredible within this, right? And I think they did a great job like teaching him how to use his body, how to backpedal at a high level, how to use his hands, and they do a great job of like teaching the details, I think, on defense. Finds guards that are really good at like getting over the top of screens, fighting. They like guys that are hyper competitors, right? Like that's the goal. Like they want dudes that are going to be there and that are going to give it all every single possession. If they have like more of a mobile big, they will like blitz the ball. Like they did that a decent amount this year with Samson Johnson, right? Last year when they had Adama Sanogo, who was like an undersized, long, big that was like a little bit more mobile than he got credit for, but not overly mobile is a fair way to put it. He was almost like a show and recover, or they play a little bit more at the level for a slide and then recover kind of thing. Willing to get way more, versatile within scheme than what, just like a rigid coach is. In general, like he gives his players like a lot of freedom to be able to do what they want to do, I think, and like to be able to take advantage of the mismatches that are created. And that's kind of the last thing I want to point out. The number one thing for me with Connecticut the last 2 years, particularly, they have been the best prepared team going into every game and playing to a scout. They seem to have their team on the court, always seem to have the answers for what the defense was going to present to them. And then on top of it, or the offense, right? If they found something that worked, I think a lot of coaches at the college level, particularly, not at the NBA level, I think a lot of college coaches like overcomplicate it and try and like, diversify what they're doing so that like you keep defenses guessing. Connecticut would just hammer the same thing like 8 times in a row if it was working, and say, stop it. Go ahead and stop it, please. They were always extremely detail oriented and prepared in terms of the scout. I think Hurley is like very, very clearly the best prospect for the NBA among college coaches schematically, at least. I'll get to what you said here in a second, but like, have you seen anything else that you would want to point out from having like watched a lot of Connecticut?
No, I mean, I think that's the big stuff right there. Just looking at some of the stats, they've top 5 in assists per game in the country the last 2 seasons, and they've had real floor spacers. So you talked about it, shooting threes, getting to the rim. They've had guys that could really shoot it. 2 years ago, they had, Joey Calcaterra, They had Caravan and Jordan Hawkins. Jordan Hawkins was a guy I watched a lot of film on. I was always so impressed in the ways that they used him, found him shots, used his shooting gravity to get other guys shots, like putting him on the weak side, knowing that the help couldn't be there, and then running action on the strong side, throwing it over the top and getting dunked. So I love how you pointed out the different ways. They didn't ask Donovan Clingan, Adama Sanogo, and Samson Johnson over the last 2 years to be the same bigs. They would use those guys in different ways.
But in that vein too, it would have been very easy for them to slot Jordan Hawkins or Cam Spencer this year directly into the same exact role that Jordan Hawkins played last year. But they didn't.
Point. They did not.
They used him more on the ball. They used him more out of like dribble handoff situations. Whereas with Hawkins, they'd run him off of like floppy and like pin downs and kind of zigzag him everywhere all over the court. Spencer, they did some of that, but they also ran him off of different actions and ran him, as more of a primary ball handler at times because that's what he was capable of doing. So in terms of like detail-oriented preparation, scouting, and offense that makes sense, Dan Hurley will be elite. Like I have no doubts about that. Like I think he will be ready to go every single game, basically. He will have them ready to fire. You mentioned the personality stuff, right? And I don't think this is an unfair sentiment. My impression of Hurley is that, yes, bit of a loose cannon, but would hopefully be able to tone it down by like a bit in the NBA. Okay. There would be moments where he will lose his mind. But like, I think that he'll understand what he has to do in order to reach the players that he has to reach. I will say, since we're talking specifically about the Lakers here, right? I am intrigued to see how a LeBron Dan Hurley combination would go both on and off the court. I don't think LeBron would be like super excited about like, Dan Hurley like yelling at him, because Dan will be like he'll be fearless, like he'll do it. On the court, Connecticut like runs a lot of, ball movement-y stuff. And I think LeBron would be fine in that. But guys aren't really ball dominant in Hurley's scheme. You know what I mean?
So can I read what I sent to somebody? And I want you to tell me where I was wrong. And if I was wrong with thinking this would be good for the Lakers, where Hurley doesn't fit. So I said, I would want a coach that is an alpha, that does have a personality on par with LeBron and even AD, commands the locker room, demands a certain level of every player, holds them accountable, probably means they have to have a certain level of stature or pre-existing relationship. I also think a coach with energy and enthusiasm important, because at times that team seemed lifeless. And then I said specifically offensively, show me a playbook with some creativity. If you tell me you're just going to isolate LeBron and AD, you can go on to the next team. That was kind of like, I had some other stuff that gets a little more detailed, but that's kind of what I thought this Lakers team would look like. I wanted them to bring in somebody with a big personality that would demand the locker room, that would shake things up, hold dudes accountable, bring energy, bring life, and an offense that wasn't stagnant and slow and ISO heavy. Am I wrong in thinking that that could be successful, first off?
No, I think that it would be good.
Is Hurley that guy?
I think he is that guy. I would be interested to know how much of that was Darvin Ham versus LeBron.
Sure.
LeBron has regularly been like the centrifugal force of a basketball team.
Yes.
Would he be willing to take that like small step backward? Maybe. I do think that like if you put Danny Hurley with like Anthony Davis win Defensive Player of the Year next year.
Yeah.
Like in that scheme where like they would vary his defensive coverages and would be willing to do a lot of different things. As long as he played 65 games minimum, I think he'd be elite within that scheme. I think he would be so fantastic. In terms of like the other stuff that comes with being an NBA coach, the 82 game grind, I think would be interesting for Hurley.
Yeah.
Cause like he does like to be pretty hands-on and like on some level, like you can't do it that much in the NBA. Like games come at you, 4 times a week, 3 times a week, a lot of the time. And like, you have to be willing to like take a step back. Otherwise, like you're going to like your assistants are going to be miserable. Right. And your players are going to be a little bit tough. I think he would probably be able to do that, but it would be a factor, right? It would be let's see how this goes early on, even if I think it will be fine. The final piece of this is like, does he do it?
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's important to talk about, I guess. Yeah.
The impression that I get is that like, this is in no way, shape or form done. Like, I want to be like very, very clear about that. This is not like a fait accompli situation where, he's going out to LA and like 100% like signing that deal on Friday. Right. My impression is like, we're seeing where this goes still. I'm not saying like it's not going to happen. I'm not saying it is going to happen. I think that there are steps to get through still before we get to him like signing that deal. That's what I would say.
Yeah, because I think, did Woj just tweet? Maybe he had already that they're meeting Friday, right? There's a meeting in LA on Friday. This is hard for me too, because man, I can't help but feel bad for his players in a sense back at Connecticut who are, left in limbo a little bit through this whole situation. And yeah, it's the nature of the business though. It's how it goes. And hopefully, I guess maybe it's resolved quickly. I will say another part of this that immediately, what does Yukon do? Like, do we get a whole new coaching carousel in the middle of the summer, which doesn't normally happen with college basketball?
I would be, look, I don't know what they would do. I want to be 100%.
I mean, there's guys very like should be looked to be promoted if they didn't go with him. Correct.
I think that's what would happen. I think it would be one of Kamani Young or Luke Murray.
Oh yeah.
I have an opinion on what I would do there. I'll wait until if this happens or not before saying anything.
Assuming both of those don't have aspirations to go to the NBA and be assistant coaches with him, like that would be,
sure.
But I would it seems like those guys have big time reputations and value to the program where it would seem that would be the quote unquote easy next step for Connecticut if in hypothetical world this came to fruition.
The other piece of this is that when a coach leaves, you get a 30-day window to hit the portal.
Yeah.
Right. If you are a player, if they did not promote internally from within, I don't know this. I haven't talked to the players on the roster or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Given the nature of college basketball at this point, I would imagine a number of those players would hit the transfer portal, and it would be a very real question as to where they would all end up. I would think that they would have to promote from within. Otherwise, they will risk, having to basically restart the program in a significant way. We'll see if this gets that far. Again, like I don't have like a full scale sense of what, Hurley is going to do here. Like I think that it is, it's going to be very interesting here in the next couple of days.
Yeah. I just, I didn't see this one coming after the Redick stuff. I just assumed we were getting through the NBA finals and then that was going to get announced. And so waking up this morning added a whole new kind of wrinkle to the conversation. So
it does. It very much adds a whole new wrinkle to the conversation. Yeah, fascinating though. I think he'd be good in the NBA.
Oh, listen, like I love
and
that.
Like the big thing is like accountability. Like the Lakers last year, it felt like just didn't have much accountability. The accountability factor is like he would lose his mind on dudes if he felt like they were not doing the right things. So
I don't want this to happen to those Connecticut kids. And listen, maybe it's time for Kamani or Murray to get a chance anyway. And so it would probably be fine. And so when I say this, I don't mean it because I want this to happen because I want to see how it works. Like just as a fan of college and NBA basketball that is fascinated in how different these games are, even though it's the same sport, and how different coaching is and players and strategy and stuff like that. I want to see it. As somebody that follows the Kansas Jayhawks for so many years, Bill Self was always a name that would come up in conversation. I was like, man, I wonder if Self would get it done at the NBA. Like, how would that work?
Yeah.
Dan Hurley's even more fascinating to me because of the way he gets it done, how much success he's coming off of. And it's the stinking Lakers, man. Like, you're going to LA to do it with one of the greatest players that's ever lived.
I do wonder how much that appeals to Hurley, like getting to coach LeBron.
Sure.
Like at the end of LeBron's career.
Because he's never done an Olympics. Like Coach K got to do the Olympics, and that's when he got his taste of coaching the best in the world. Has Hurley done like an assistant coach on an Olympic team or anything like that?
Not on an Olympic team, but okay. I think he's been involved at like youth levels.
Got you.
At times.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to move on here and talk about a couple of NBA draft things before we get out?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the last thing that is like on our agenda, at least, and we might answer some questions after, is that Nikola Topic has a partially torn ACL, according to his agent, Mishko Raznatovic. He's at the NBA's combine in Italy. He went through the NBA's medical examination. I talked to a team last night, and they said that like they don't have the medical yet. So like they don't like actually like their team does not have like the actual result yet, basically. That's not to say that that won't change, right? But it will change certainly, and it could have changed by now as far as I know, but at least as of 12 hours ago or something, like the teams didn't actually have the medical yet. It's just that like Topic's agent Mishko is being like very, very transparent at this point with what the injury is. Now, what do we do with this, Bryce? We knew that Topic was injured. Did not know it was a partially torn ACL. We don't know, like, does this require surgery? What does, what do all of the moving pieces mean here is a huge piece of this. What is your immediate reaction to hearing that Nikola Topic has a partially torn ACL?
That if I was a team, I think I would want him to have surgery and get it fixed. Like that. Listen, like so we've talked about how I tore my ACL multiple times during playing days. So like I've been through this process.
Partial tears, like full tears across the board.
Full tears, yeah. full tears, different types of surgery. Like mine was all like, that's a 30-minute story that's like all messed up. But so I've been through rehab, all of this different stuff. My immediate experience, and listen, I'm not a doctor. This was a long time ago. It was like a partially torn ACL would make me very nervous with a team. Like I wouldn't want him playing on that, I guess is my point. I would want it fixed.
No. Yeah. He won't play on it. It's just
So let's just get it. I guess what I'm trying to say is if I'm drafting Nikola Topic, I'm assuming I'm probably not getting him his rookie season, or it's very, very few games.
Does that matter to you?
Not with where we are at with ACL surgeries in 2024. I don't think so. And considering his age, I guess I just have to be comfortable with the fact that, part of drafting rookies is you get them for 5, how many ever years on this lower number, and you're going to miss out on one of those years. He's going to miss out on a year of development at an important age. But they're not the same player, but Chet just missed an entire rookie season and came back in year 2 and was ready to go. Now Chet was older and, had a year of college and all of that. It changes the equation a little bit for me, but for some teams, probably not. For other teams, maybe a tad more. Can the Spurs afford to wait around for him if they really think Wemby's ready to go?
Yeah. To me, if you're taking a guy in the top, 8 or 9, and he's a teenager and is probably not going to be an effective basketball player in the NBA from day one as it is, because most teenagers are not great NBA basketball players, right? Wemby excluded from this conversation. I think that it matters insofar as I would want to get my hands on the medical and see what the overall structural stability of his, musculature is and what it all looks like, and is all of everything stable for him long term. If it is, it probably knocks it down a little bit. If it's not, it doesn't knock it down. I'm not that worried, I guess. But if it's seriously, to put it a different way, if it's a serious, there is a chance this could get worse, and there is a chance that it could be recurring in some way, shape, or form. Sure. Yes, obviously this knocks him down into the teens for me somewhere. I don't think I could get further than the teens in this draft, but it would knock him down. If it looks like it's going to be fine and stable and his musculature looks pretty clean the rest of his career, I would say probably doesn't matter to me. It would only knock him down a couple of spots.
Yeah. And again, in my experience going through the rehab, they part of my process was teaching me the right way to move and jump and land to not let it happen again. And so unless there's just something with the way his body is structured or something, you know what I mean? I don't know those things enough to know whether, and so unless there's something like that, I wouldn't have any worries about it happening again just because it happened now or anything like that. It just would be, I'm just assuming, even if with it only being quote unquote partially, I'm just not going to get much from him in his rookie year. But like you said, he's 18, teenager. It is an important year of development, but it's plenty of time to build out from there still.
Yeah. So in terms of having reached out to some teams and, just asking the Topic question, right? What does this mean for his draft stock on the actual evening? I would say that it's too early to tell because again, teams don't actually have their hands on the report yet or what they get, right? B, if it comes back clean, my impression is that he is still going to go in the lottery somewhere. And will still be very highly sought after. I would say his range goes from what I would have said previously was 3 to 10, probably more to I don't know, 8 to 14 or so, something like that.
That was my vibe and my instant reaction to the news as well. Was something along those lines. And honestly, we had talked about this. I guess that maybe there was a chance he fell further than what some people were thinking, or at least what maybe I was thinking even before this, because we didn't get in, as many of those Red Star games to evaluate him as what we wanted. And so,
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Like you say, still a lottery pick, but maybe not as much like a top 5 guy anymore. More like, what have you said, 6 to 12, 13s, 14.
The other piece of this that is like really interesting is that this is the first year of players having to go to a combine.
Yeah.
A piece of this is that because Topic was ranked in that 2 to 6 range, when the NBA like sent its memo out to teams saying like what teams get access to medical reports. Currently, the only teams that are guaranteed access to Topic's medical reports are the teams in the top 15 of the draft.
Oh, I didn't realize that's how it worked. Not all 30 teams get access to this stuff?
Not to the top 10 players.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So currently only the top 15 only the top 15 teams in the draft have access to his medicals, or will have access to his medicals. My read on how I would handle this, let's say, if I was in Mishko Raznatovic's shoes, is I would, obviously the top 15 have the medicals, but like I might be able to play this a little bit like old school draft style, where if there's a team I want him to slide to outside of the top 15, I wonder if I can kind of maneuver that a little bit by selectively sharing medicals beyond that. I think that Topic will go somewhere in the top 15, to be clear, but we are at that precipice now of like what his range would be, I think, to where like a team could easily try and move up for him, right? Like a team could easily go from 18 to, and I'm not saying this specifically with Orlando as the 18th pick, but like a team could easily go from 18 to 12 if he's still on the board and move up to get him. Yeah. Right. Is that a certain, like at that point, his agency has the decision on whether or not that team at 18 gets the medicals. So I am very intrigued by that piece of it as well. A couple of just like questions I see in the comments here. MPJ, let's see, went 14th because of health stuff. Topic will go after that. Porter Jr.'s health stuff was more concerning for teams.
Wait, yeah. So I wasn't doing this whenever, wasn't his like a back, like, yeah, like to me, an ACL is much more of an isolated incident that should, again, unless there's other, like, unless you look at his body and the way it's constructed or whatever, shouldn't have it, like one shouldn't lead to another. Like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of my understanding. Again, I tore mine multiple times, but it had to do with, it wasn't because of that. Like, it was other stuff. So I don't think Topic is going to have multiple ACL injuries once he hits the NBA. In the way it seemed like Porter Jr.'s was like, is this a back thing that will like bother him? I don't know. Can you speak even to Cam Whitmore a little bit? Wasn't there like knee concerns with him a little bit, like long term? How long is the knee going to last? Not even necessarily like
longer term concerns,
but not even like ACL injuries, but like maybe just holding up. So maybe there is something that comes from this that you find out with Topic. I think that's whenever we're talking the same type of thing.
There were longer term concerns with Whitmore. It was not a short term worry. Yeah, is what I would feel comfortable saying. Yeah. And I think teams way overreacted to that too. I've been very clear on that front throughout the draft process. So Grape Ape brings up, and this is an interesting comparison point for Topic, I think. I was told yesterday this player type, but super healthy, was worth pick 26. What do you think the difference is between Nikola Topic and Josh Giddey?
Well, I think Topic has the chance to shoot. Like, I think he shows some shooting touch in regards to that. The other thing is, like, just like we said yesterday, Yeah, if you're going to sit, like, I don't think I would put Topic in the starting lineup with the Oklahoma City Thunder either. Like, I don't think that's what would be best for him. You have to give him the ball and let him go to work and operate your offense. So I think, yeah, if Topic doesn't shoot in the way that Giddey doesn't shoot, then yeah, he's not going to be worth the top 10 pick or whatever we're talking about.
So I think Topic is a better bet to shoot than Giddey ever was. And I think that Topic is a much better rim pressure guy than what Giddey was. He consistently got into the paint in like a significant, substantial way, whereas Josh was like a little bit more perimeter based coming out of Adelaide. And look, like I did not have a super high grade on Josh coming out of Adelaide. I had him at like 13 on my board. And I have Topic, 6 or 7 in a worse draft. Right. So like, I wouldn't say I'm, miles higher on Topic than I am on Giddey either. But the thing is that like, if Topic shoots, like it really like freaking skyrockets in a hurry. And I think that there is like enough touch there to project like that he has a chance to shoot it.
Yeah.
Okay. Final thoughts here. Let's say, maybe not on Topic, but on like draft stuff. Do you have any other any other take?
I will ask you what Topic, because I saw that like NBA draft Twitter like really got up, like not up about his wingspan. Were you shocked by his wingspan?
Oh.
Was it a big deal to you? Do you care?
So yeah, I never thought the 7-foot wingspan was real. I think I've said on this show that I thought it was probably like 6'9". Maybe. So it is shorter than what I thought. Like I never thought it was like a +6 or whatever people like. That was always insane. That never made any sense to me. But I did think that it was a little bit longer than what had been, or than what this is. Right. Cause it's like 6'6", right?
It essentially is neutral, right? And that's, I mean, I do find it interesting because I do have some concerns about Topic's ability to finish around the rim. And, obviously longer arms allows you to finish around over, bigger players a little bit. So I did find it interesting with that, along with the injury and everything else. Like it was kind of a rough day for him in general, with not necessarily positive news around his draft stock.
The big thing with Topic is that so much of his game is predicated upon finishing at the rim right now as a scorer, right? I think he does a really good job of using his length to like extend. Like he doesn't really ever dunk the ball, but like he does a good job of using the length he has to like get the ball closer to the basket. Right. Will he be able to do that in the NBA? I'm worried. Yeah. Like I'm a little bit more worried about it, I would say. Look, I'm probably going to end up with him somewhere in the like, I don't know, 7 to 10 range. Like it's here. So I've talked a lot about Bub Carrington and being a big fan of Bub Carrington, right? I think that like him versus Bub Carrington is a real question for me. And I have Bub in the top 10. So like I am very high on Bub. But I think Bub versus him is like a real question because Bub has like real pull-up shooting gravity.
Yeah. I don't have Bub that high, but I will say I have Topic that low, quote unquote, that low now as well. And he's closer to 10 than to the top, where at one time I had him as, a top 3, top 5 guy. And now he's in 10 in a different range where, again, into the lottery, if, perhaps further.
Noah Burkito asks, and people, you can ask questions. We'll probably be on for like 5 more minutes and maybe I'll, grab a couple and we'll answer them. But does wingspan matter as much for larger guards? No, frankly, because they're bigger. Like Taron Armstrong, for instance, is 6'5" with a 6'6" wingspan and has like an 8'9" standing reach. Like it's ridiculous. Like, I would like to know what Topic's standing reach is. I would like to know just a little bit more detail on all of this regarding Topic here. I'll be interested to see like the full measurements, but to answer your question, no, it does not matter as much. It does matter though. Especially for somebody that is so dependent upon finishing at the rim.
So
for his offense right now.
My immediate thought was wingspan for me or for guys who aren't crazy athletic, especially vertically with explosiveness and just helping them find those angles to finish. Or like you say, in general, guys whose game is predicated on that rim pressure and finishing around the rim. And then I also tend to look for that wingspan in guys that I look as defensive disruption being one of their main things in the NBA. And just because at the end of the day, whenever you have a longer wingspan, you cover more ground, you can get more deflections, cause more havoc on the ball, those type of things. So those are the two kind of skills, archetypes, whatever, where I kind of seem to factor it in a little bit more than maybe, a floor spacer that's just going to stretch the floor, where I'm like, I don't know where his wingspan is really coming into play with what he's going to be asked to do.
Yeah. And look, like the interesting point of comparison with like him versus like a Bub Carrington, both of whom are like relatively bigger guards. Bub's probably like 1.5 inches, 2 inches shorter, but like Bub will be like 6'5" in shoes or so. Like, probably like, I think he's like 6'3", 7'5", 6'4" without shoes. He's under 6'4". I know that. Topic in Europe was a guy that like got a crazy amount of like rim pressure and like rim attempts, like unassisted rim attempts. Bub got like none of them. Like Bub was always like pull up threat. Like let's get to this mid-range jumper, baby. Let's take this and knock it down. Which one do I think is more projectable now is like a really good question, right? Like, is Bub's mid-range jumper more projectable than Topic's like finishing? Real question to me, right? Do I think Bub can get to a different level as a finisher as he gets stronger and more, just physically developed? Because Topic, I think, is like a little bit more ahead of him in terms of his, we all like grow at different rates, right? I think Bub's like frame is still filling out. Like he was really, really skinny when he was like 16. Yeah, I think there's like a good chance I will end up with Bub Carrington ahead of Nikola Topic.
Okay.
And I will feel quite maybe feel silly about it, but we shall see. From Raul, what do you think of the Spurs taking Klingon at number 4 to pair with Wemby? I think this is a horrendous idea and I hate it. That's my take on it. I will have serious questions about the Spurs front office if they do this.
So because you don't think they would play together at all?
Oh no, I think they would try to play them together.
Yeah.
But my problem is that what makes Victor Wembanyama so valuable, this is the way I put it in a thing I wrote with Kelly Eco on the Spurs. Do you know how the Wolves like had to go get Rudy Gobert because Karl Towns like couldn't really protect the rim and like couldn't defend, right?
Yeah.
And like how, Rudy isn't ideal to have out there with like a non-spacing 4 because
he can't space.
Just rim runner, can't space, great screener, but like great offensive rebounder, does some things, but like not skilled on the ball, right? Wembanyama is like if you combined those two together, right? The ideal is to play 5 out when you have Wembanyama and still maintain the length and athleticism that you have in order to defend all over the court, right? If I was the Spurs, I would want to surround Victor Wembanyama with like 3 guys at least that are like 6'6" to 6'9" and just go. I would not want to like slow-footed 7-footer out there. And oh, by the way, we've seen what this looks like already because they played Zach Collins next to him to start the season.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say Zach Collins was like terrible, but it was clear that having Victor out there with Zach or having Zach Collins out there with Victor diminished what makes Wembanyama special as a defender, which is that ability to constantly be around the rim. If you put him at the 4, and you will put him at the 4, whether you mean to or not in that circumstance, because
he has to be defensively.
teams will just bring Donovan Clingan like up to the like
Yes.
point. And like you want Victor Wembanyama involved in as many ball screen actions defensively and as much at the rim as possible. You don't want to pull him away.
I say this isn't a shot at Zach Collins or Donovan Clingan in terms of, especially Clingan, what we think he is. I think we both came away from that film breakdown going, no, he needs to be in these ball screens because he changes what passing angles are there, which ones aren't, as opposed to like, I think it's cool to think him as the off ball defender that roams and uses his length that way. But it didn't seem like it was having the same impact as being directly
what's
involved
cool
in every
about that?
position.
You can do that with fives now.
Yeah.
If a team has a non-shooter out there,
Sure.
do that.
Sure.
It's fine. And just stick them next to the rim.
Yeah.
But if you have Clingan out there, I don't think it is as valuable to be able to do that. The final thing I'll say on this is a whole thing on offense with Wembanyama is being able to play him at the 5 and being able to have like 5, dribble, pass, shoot, maybe 2 of those 3 skills on every single other player out there at once. So to me, like absolutely not. No, do not do this.
Well, and so like when we talk about, I say the cheat code of these guys, whenever we're talking about Victor, Chet, all these guys do things a little bit differently. Of course, I'm not saying they're all, and we just broke it down with Porzingis as well. I just think that archetype is insanely valuable. And you're right. Like you just don't want to diminish that by then putting a non-floor spacer out there or something like that.
Yep. I think that's all we're going to go with. Basketball Genesis asks Clingan or Derek Lively as a prospect. That's a fascinating answer or a fascinating question. I had Lively at 10 last year on my board in a draft where I think I've said that I would take all of the top 6 guys on my board at number 1 this year.
Yeah, like my immediate thought was Clingan, but I don't know that that's necessarily right based on the talent of the classes.
I actually think it would be Lively for me, for what it's worth.
I'm trying to think, like, what does Clingan obviously do better?
I think he is actually a better passer than Lively. I know Lively has been a really good passer. I think he is a.
In what regard? Like, do you think he should?
%?
Yeah,
like
that was an unfair question. Let me give it better context. That was stupid. Do you think they make different short roll decisions, or is it like that Clingan can operate it? Do you feel more comfortable with like Clingan operating a DHO more than you would Derek Lively? Like where
I feel like Clingan is much better at operating dribble handoffs and being able to do.
I would agree. I think if we're
finding cutters, yeah.
Okay. I think if we're short rolling, I don't think I have a whole lot of difference between the two. But if I want to throw Clingan the ball at the top of the key, run a DHO, use his body in that way, like I think Clingan's probably going to be a better screener because of just sheer size.
Well, I think he got really good as a screener by the end of the year too, by the way. I want to call that out. He was awesome as a screener by the end of the year.
But Lively probably offers more rim gravity in terms of just like the lob threat and rim runner in regards to that. So I think this is an awesome question.
More versatile defensively. You can do different things with him.
Too. That's true too.
I don't think either of them are going to shoot. These are 2 guys that like people keep
agree.
bringing up like, oh, like what if they can shoot? What if they can do this? Like I don't see them ever shooting either.
I will die on this hill, and it won't be the first or last thing I'm wrong about. But if I get one more, Clingan becomes Brook Lopez. I'm like, why? Tell me why. Give me the data point that shows me that Donovan Clingan can be Brook Lopez. Like, I don't like using that as I'm pretty sure Lopez was an 80% free throw shooter his last year of college. Donovan Clingan wasn't. I'm not saying he can't. Maybe somebody else knows the work ethic or whatever. I just think that that's a little bit scary to start throwing around, that Clingan's just automatically going to do that.
Yeah, I think where I'm at is that I think the answer is Lively for me because I like the defensive versatility a little bit better. I think Clingan is probably a better rim protector, and I think Clingan honestly is better in drop coverage than what Lively is.
I would agree.
But I like having the vertical rim threat that Lively brings. I like having the speed that Lively brings. I like having the transition threat that Lively brings. And I like being able to do different things with him in the playoffs comparatively to what Clingan does. And this is all stuff that Lively showed at Duke, in my opinion. This is why I had him at 10 last year. I quite liked Lively.
Okay, so I will just be, I didn't even have a big board last year, but I was probably a little lower on Lively. So just to be fair, because the question is as a prospect, my answer is probably Klingon, just based off where I have Klingon on my board and where I probably would have had Derek Lively last year. And I'm probably weighting what I've seen in his rookie year too much. And that's not what the question asks. But I mean,
to be clear too, like, I like Derek. I think they're both starting centers in the NBA.
Sure.
Like I don't think either of them are going to make an all-star team, and I think they're both starting caliber centers in the NBA. And I think this is a great question. I would have Lively just like a little bit more.
Yep, I love it. And I think it could end up team specific too, based on the things we just talked about, the little nuance differences within their game and what they do better.
100%. Okay, Bryce. I told you an hour 20. We're going to get out of here in an hour 30. That was my goal.
This was impressive.
I didn't want to belabor. I didn't want to stick around too deep today. Okay, so we're going to podcast on Sunday. Our plan currently is probably to do game 2 on Sunday and then do some off-season previews would be my guess. Probably catch up on off-season previews because I think we might be close enough to where we can catch up.
Okay.
Then on Tuesday, we will do a mock draft, like an actual, this is what we're looking at. This is what's going to happen. This is what we think we would do, however we want to describe it.
Sure.
Mock draft. So that will be Tuesday. Keep it locked here. I will hopefully be done with the draft guide by then. I think our goal for the draft guide is to get it out in like 10 days, something like that. So I just have like very few profiles left. So my goal is to be done by like tomorrow. Beyond that, that's all we've got at this point. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah. So at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, kind of like I've been saying, just follow over there and you can find all of my work, scouting reports I put out, Substack, other podcasts, all of those things. And other than there, I'm here at Game Theory Podcast with Sam Vecenie.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. It'd be great. I ended up writing some things on Danny Hurley today. Have a few things coming up there next week as well. And then, like I said, I think draft guide's like in 10 days. So keep it locked here. We'll be back on Sunday to talk about game 2 and some off-season stuff. Maybe some news about Danny Hurley. Maybe some other news. Who knows? Until next time, though, we'll talk soon.